Hello, friends. My name is Charmaine from Two Wit Child, where we talk about spirituality and mental health. And this is my co host today, Kiwi, at least for a little bit. Kiwi is one of the Buff Orpington chicks that I brought home in late March. That's what I said, late March. Kiwi is about 12 weeks old right now. That is the time of filming. This video is coming out on the 1st, and that's still a week away. I have to pre-record some shows because I'm going to be out of town. So, Kiwi here had a little fit, knocked over a glass of water, got my whole notebook wet, and now my notes for this episode, kind of a disaster. So I'm going to bring Kiwi here back out to the coop. And before I do, I'll let you see how big the baby is if she will cooperate and move. Just a little bit. Hi. Hi. It's okay. It's okay. There you go. Yeah, you're gonna sit for just a minute. Here. See, we a big girl. We a big girl, aren't we? Yeah. We're getting our little waddle. Our comb is getting redder. Little red face. All right. Now that we've had a little sneaky of this big beefy baby, I'm gonna bring her back to the coop. Is that right? Is you a sweet, sweet baby? Yeah. Came back from returning Kiwi to the flock, and they are mighty happy to see her. And like I said, my notes are trash. So, off of memory, here we go. This episode, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the stories that we tell ourselves. I mean, a lot of us have stories about a lot of different things. They may be like things that happened in our life, what happened last week. There's always stories. But what's the story you tell yourself about yourself? What is your story? What does it look like? If you grew up with trauma like I did, and then had it perpetrated through life like I did, you may struggle with this story about yourself. The first activity I was ever given where I really thought about my own personal story and what it would look like was in therapy, and my therapist at the time had asked us to think about or write down what an obituary written by our children would look like. And to really put thought into it, what would our children say about us? And at that time, 15 years ago, I slowly started to realize that my children weren't going to say anything bad about me, but what they were going to say about me wasn't what I wanted my story to be. I didn't want to be what my perception of what their perception of me would be. Now, my perception of what they think is completely off target. How do I know? Because I've asked them, and a lot of things that stick out in my mind, they don't even remember. Things that they do remember, I don't remember. It's a funny thing, that perception, you know? It's at perception and memory at that. So, out of my notes here, basically, I think what my gist was, what is the story you tell yourself? Did that story come from outside sources? Or is the story purely your own? Are you sticking in facts to your story that other people have said? Because things that people say aren't necessarily fact, it's perception. I just recently did a show on not the all or nothing thinking. I just recently did a show on less than thoughts. And that really kind of made me think about this whole what is your story? I had a lot of less than thoughts in my story because I never thought I was pretty enough. I never thought I had pretty enough hair. I always wanted really straight hair. I wanted to be fair skinned like everybody I knew. I wanted to be blonde like most of the people I knew. There were so many things that I thought were better than what I already had. And growing up, seeing all of those comparisons to other people really damaged my self esteem when I should have been celebrating my wins. I've had a chance to think about my story several times over the past 15 years. I was a mom who had survived some childhood abuse and then some military trauma and was at the tail end of a marriage trying to decide whether to stay or whether to go. I was confused and anxious all the time, and I knew my kids could see how anxious I was all the time. When I thought about what my kids would say about me if I passed away suddenly, I realized that they didn't have a whole lot to say about me. And that's when I took the opportunity to make sure I did stuff with my children, took them camping. I took them fishing. I took them to parks. We swam in lakes. We did things, even though there may have been free things to do, we still went out and we did those things. And I was very glad that I had that question brought up to me while I was still fairly young and my kids were still in the house and young, that I could change my story for myself. Now, when I think about the story I would tell about myself, that story is filled with strength, with weakness, with good decisions, with bad decisions, and with twists and turns and unexpected things happening. But my perception of what my life has been has changed. I don't focus nearly as much on the bad as I did before. I focus now on what I'm grateful for and what I have now versus what life used to be like. Because it's very easy to get caught up in what life used to be like. And thinking about those things can bring about those same feelings like they're happening all over again. Thinking about it and all the people I know, there are probably thousands of perceptions out there about me that I know nothing about. All I have is the perception I have, which for the longest time I was stuck with. And my perception was based off of half truths and lies. And I had very poor self esteem because of it. The story that we tell ourselves is very important. I myself am an artist, and I've heard this from other artists as well, that when we create a painting, when we create whatever our art allows us to create, we tend to make a story to go along with that piece of art, that particular piece of art. I have very large pieces of art that have stories that go along with them. And those stories in turn help me create the art that I created. And we're always recreating ourselves. We kind of are pieces of art ourselves. And we can continually recreate us all the time. We can change from what we used to be to something new at any given moment. At any moment, we can make a choice to be different, say different things to ourselves, to be different towards other people. We can choose to make boundaries that maybe we didn't have before, but now we have. And we can change our story into something that makes us proud to be a part of. And I think that's where I want to get with this whole, what's your story show. is what is the story you're telling yourself about yourself? Does your story make you feel good about yourself, or does your story make you feel bad about yourself? I will say this, I've made some very poor decisions in the course of my life, and those decisions, though they weren't the greatest and they brought out a whole bunch of strife in my life, they also brought me a lot of growth, and I wouldn't be where I am today had I not had those poor decisions made to learn the lessons that they brought me, to bring me to a place where I could change my story now. You can change your story at any time. You're not locked into who you are ever. And people who tell you that they're locked into who they are forever, they're just people that don't want to face themselves and do the work that is required to make the changes necessary. So, what is your story? What is it that you're telling yourself? Does it make you feel empowered, or does it make you feel guilty and weak? I challenge you to change the story that you tell yourself. Maybe you change the story that you tell yourself simply by switching the "I'm not worth it, I can't do anything right," those thoughts. How about we change it to, "Ugh, I made a mistake, but it's okay because I'm human." If we treat ourselves kinder, our stories can change into something beautiful, works of art. I challenge you to take a look at your story. Is it what you want to be telling yourself? If so, fantastic. But if not, let's change that story. The challenge is to make changes to your story. Make your story what you want to live. And of course, if you're struggling to just live, if you're struggling to make it minute to minute, remember that the National Crisis Hotline is out there. Dial 988. When you dial 988, you're directed to some peer support counselors who can sometimes just talk you through your problem from an outside view where they know nothing about your life. Sometimes talking to you in that manner can help you decide what you do need to do to fix whatever crisis is happening. This isn't just for suicide, it's for any type of crisis. 988. If you're struggling, reach out for help. As always, take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And until next time on To a Child, light and love, friends.